the pros and cons of using a custom crosshair, or if you should realistically stick with the default ones. I know a lot of people like using custom crosshairs because it's more of a glamour thing. For a lot of people, me included honestly, it could just be a placebo. You feel like you're playing better because you switch something up, but the question is, by how much? Does switching to a custom crosshair provide a noticeable difference in gameplay? I'll break down the pros and cons and try to convince you on why it's a good idea to switch or stay default depending on which fact is more important to you. Starting with pro number 1, and personally I think the biggest reason to switch over, you can have a good looking crosshair for building and editing. The default one is this weird looking red and white building icon, which is terrible. I mean, if you're trying to focus on crosshair placement and keep your edits as efficient as possible, this is not it. Like, you can't even really tell where the center is on this because it's so big other than feel. So with this, it's harder to have good efficient edits on the corners of tiles, but with a custom crosshair, you can get a very specific tight spread for this, which to me at least was a game changer. So definitely not a placebo for that one. This is a clip of me editing with no custom crosshair, just using the default, and don't worry, I did not try to throw the clip to make it seem like it's a bigger difference. This is gameplay from a couple weeks ago where I was still using the default crosshairs and was used to it, as well as was grinding the game every day. So don't worry, it's not inflated gameplay to make a point, but you will notice even though I'm balling on a lot of edits, some of these I do miss. After switching to a custom crosshair, this is my new gameplay, and I'm not totally used to them yet, but I could still feel a massive difference. This was filmed today, so my mechanics haven't gotten substantially better or anything than a couple weeks ago, but I was hitting more edits first try and scuffing less of them. And again, trying to make these two clips as unbiased as possible. But now for con 1 of the custom crosshair. Even though you gain customizability for editing and shooting, you also lose a little bit of information. What I mean by this is in Fortnite, each gun's crosshair is different. I think this is especially prevalent for guns like the Gatekeeper shotgun that have a really unique spread. In this circumstance, your custom crosshair is not going to actively reflect that. The most common custom crosshairs are crosses and circles, and these just don't accurately reflect a triangle spread. And even if you did make a custom triangle one, your other guns would now be on a triangle spread, which wouldn't be accurate to those. But luckily, this is partially dealt with in applications like Crosshair X. So on to pro number 2, you can actually use separate custom crosshairs that are toggleable through keybinds. So if you play Fortnite, you would, for example, maybe bind a shotgun-like pattern to your shotgun key and maybe a tight spread cross for your AR or SMG buttons. This is really helpful because now it feels like you're just playing the regular game, just with your own inputted crosshairs. Although I do feel like in games like Valorant, CSGO, etc., this would be really helpful and almost perfect. But in Fortnite, there is a problem. Say you bind your shotgun crosshair to a shotgun button. Well, there's still multiple different shotguns in the game. So con number 2 is that it will never be consistent with the rotating loot pool. One match you might have a pump shotgun there in that slot, which your crosshair would be accurate for. But in another game, you might have the combat shotgun in that slot, and now your spread on screen is too wide and that might mess you up. But on the other side of the coin is pro number 3, and that is the fact that having one crosshair for every gun could also be beneficial. It doesn't matter what gun you are using, the middle of your screen will always be where the bullet or shell spray will hit, and that middle will also be where most of the damage will be dealt. So even if all of these guns do have different crosshairs, tricking your mind into shooting the dead center of your screen at a tiny cross or circle crosshair might be better. At least for me, I know I've been more cognitive of where I'm aiming after switching to custom crosshairs. This is because I don't have any fluff room or a sort of bailout area on my crosshair. In my mind, it's the center of the screen or bust, even though the actual in-game spread of the bullets hasn't changed at all. Okay, but back to the multi-crosshair situation and why it works better for games like CS and Val, but not as good for Fortnite, is con 3. In those games, you're pretty much switching between guns and utility, and that's it. Whereas in Fortnite, you're switching between these two, but also building and editing menus. And I did say I like this little cross for editing, but using too many custom crosshairs bound to toggleable hotkeys is not good for this reason. And that reason is edit on release. Say you pull out your shotgun before editing a wall, so now your shotgun crosshair is out, all good. But then you go to edit your wall by holding down your edit button, and now your edit crosshair is out, also all good. But as soon as you confirm your edit by releasing that key, your shotgun crosshair will not come back because you didn't hit that button, but your shotgun in-game game does because you released that edit key. And again, that's because you're not actually re-clicking your shotgun button, you're just exiting your edit menu because you have edit on release on and are releasing that key. And this obviously isn't a super big deal, but I do think if I had drastically different crosshairs for editing and for my shotgun, it'd be really weird to shoot my shotgun after editing with that edit crosshair. It could be super distracting and likely confuse me where I'd spend at least a split second too long thinking about it. For example, if you do a mongrel classic and need to shoot the person with your edit crosshair, it might throw me off. And even if you have edit on release off, I don't think you're safe. Because still, when you're confirming an edit, you're actually re-clicking that edit button, which would again bring up that edit crosshair, when realistically you're confirming and your shotgun is now being pulled out. Although, don't fret, I think I solved this by making my shotgun crosshair the same as my edit/build crosshair, and now this isn't a problem because it doesn't need to switch between two different crosshairs, it's the same one. Okay, but on to pro number 4. A custom crosshair is obviously very customizable, which the main benefit of this is you can make it very bright and stick out from your surroundings. Subconsciously, whether you realize it or not, sometimes with a white or black crosshair, you can kind of lose track of it, whether that's in the sun, the shadows, the color of the wood, or the water, etc. But with a custom crosshair, you can make that shit pink like my dick. But yeah, that is very obvious when you're using it in game. It personally makes me pay attention to it more, so I hit more shots with it. And again, back to point number 1, when editing with a bright pink good looking crosshair, it sticks out really easily against the blue tiles on the edit grid, which for me, that's just perfect. And I do have one more pretty serious drawback of the custom crosshair in this video, but I also want to show you how to fix it. And if you've been enjoying so far, please drop a like and invest into the channel so you can say you got in early. And if I have helped you decide on using a custom or a default crosshair, then please return the favor and help me out by using code reidtheninja in the item shop, or if not, then just whoever you can help. But on to con number 4, a custom crosshair makes aiming in with a scope really weird unless you apply an aim animation to it. So what that means, on Crosshair X you can add animations when you're aiming in, so it doesn't make the ADS all weird. Although in Fortnite, which is a third-person game a majority of the time, and how there are third-person ADSing and first-person ADSing, it's almost impossible to get this right. So for example, if you have a scoped gun and only want to use the reticle that comes with the weapon, you can apply an aim animation where, say, the lines dart super far out of the way when you hold right-click so you can see better. The problem with this is if you're using a third-person weapon, you now have no assistance of a real in-game scope, and your ADS crosshair animation is still applied, so it can be tricky to use. But it's not over. The one way around this that I can foresee is applying custom crosshairs to different item slots. For example, if you typically run a 2 or 3 gun loadout, have your first slot for scoped weapons where you can have this ADS animation applied where it gets out of your way, and then have your other slots have no animation. That way, if you get a third-person weapon with no scope, you can just have it in these other slots. And if you don't have any scoped weapon at all, then you can just leave that first slot with no gun. Maybe put a mini in there and you don't really need to ADS with a mini shield. But then of course, once you do pick up a scoped weapon, you can rearrange your inventory so it all matches up. So use that custom or that default, whatever you prefer, and start dropping 20 bombs. And if you want to know exactly how to do that, I just made a video covering my strategies to getting high kill games in ranked. Check that out to improve quickly and change your mindset. Again, please use code reidtheninja if I've helped you out, and if you're not, just please at least use a small creator's code since it goes the mile so much further for the little guy. Thank you so much for watching, invest in the channel, and on that note, I am signing off.